Welcome to Less Than 15, a show for busy business owners brought to you by DFK Australia New Zealand. Each week we deliver bite-sized, actionable insights from industry experts so you're across the issues that really matter. I'm your host, Angela Rasmus. Let's dive into this week's topic. Welcome back to another episode of Less Than 15. Today we're speaking with Gary Nugent, the managing partner of DFK Nugent in Melbourne. Gary is also the chair of DFK Australia New Zealand as a whole. Thank you for fitting us into your busy schedule, Gary.
Thanks, Angela. I appreciate the opportunity.
We're going to be having a conversation about something that's incredibly important, preparing your business for sale. And before we hit record, we've agreed that one of the key stumbling blocks is the timing of when you actually want to sell the business and giving yourself ample time to do that. So in your experience, ideally, how far in advance should the business owner start preparing for that wild sale day?
Yes, it's an interesting point, Angela. In terms of the management texts that speak of start with the end in mind, ideally everyone starts a business with a view that eventually sell it. But of course, that time comes around very, very quickly, and most people leave it too late. 3 to 5 years is about the normal time frame you would need. 3 years is certainly what I would regard as a short-term plan, and 5 years gives the owner an opportunity to do things to the business that might need to be done, fix up the bits and bobs that perhaps are less than perfect.
So if we are looking at the risks that could be involved if you leave it too late, can you give us a little bit of motivation here as to why we should start earlier? What are the things that you see get in the way if you do leave it too late?
Often if you're selling real estate, one of the things you do is you look around the property and have a bit of a look at the things that you might want to fix up before you put it on the market. You don't want a full renovation, but there's certain niceties that could be done. Same thing with a business. You look at the business from an outsider's perspective and say, well, what are the things that need to be fixed and how do I go about doing that? So the risks in not having enough time might simply be that you haven't locked down your key people, or you haven't talked to the right people about what your opportunities of selling the business would be. Probably the biggest risk, though, is that you will sell it for less than it's worth significantly if you don't put it in the best shape that it could be to make it attractive to a purchaser.
That's a really good point, because I know one of the things that happens so often using that real estate metaphor is that our house never looked better than the week in which we were going to sell it. And you wonder, why didn't we do all that renovation work before then? So let's look at what sort of things do you see, or what are the key areas that really could impact a sale, where we should take remediation or be improving things so we can really enhance the business value? What advice would you give us there?
So with the value is often it's depending on the size of the business, but often it's a multiple of profits. So we always look at maximizing the profits, and most business owners would say, well, I'm doing the best I can to maximize my profits. But the question would be, are you? So if you really put your thinking hat on, are there things that you could improve that would improve profitability? Because if your value is a multiple of profits, then you win both sides. You not only make those extra profits for the 3 to 5 years of this time frame, but you also pick the uplift of extra value by virtue of it being more profitable, and therefore the multiples based on a higher base. So it is very much a win-win process to improve. And some of those things that might need to be improved are, it's pretty extensive and it requires a little bit of thought. But with the right mind and the right questions, most owners have the answers. They just need to have the time to be able to do what needs to be done.
That makes sense, because every business is individual. But if we were going to take a broad brushstrokes approach to it, are there categories we should be looking at in a typical business where there might be opportunities for improvement? I know that on that note as well, we don't want to improve it till it's perfect, because a lot of people, when they're purchasing a business, are looking for where they might be able to make an improvement, bring in their own magic and stamp their own design on a business. But there's probably some core areas that we should not overlook when we're looking at improving.
Yeah, indeed. Look, if you're thinking about why do franchises do so successfully and why they more valuable than an ordinary business, and look to replicate some of that process. So, for instance, it would be brand first and foremost. Is your brand well established? Have you done what you need to do to secure the brand? Have you got copyright over your key information? Have you trademarked some of your key logos? Then you might look at the systems. Now, most people would say, oh, look, I don't need a system documentation or a playbook or anything like that, because I know what needs to be done, and the people that have been with me for a long time know what needs to happen. But a purchaser doesn't know how you go about what you do. And the less you document, the less transferable is the business. Then it comes down to people. Who are the key people who are going to stay with the business? Because once you start having conversations with people, they might say, look, my loyalty is to the vendor of the business, not to the business. And they might say, as soon as you go, I'm gone. Knowing that in advance means you would probably go out of your way to lock those sorts of people in, so as to provide the purchaser with confidence that the business will continue.
Yeah.
And the other one is plans. What are all the things that you might want? Like when we buy a property, off the plan, or we have a plan, we think of it in terms of, I can visualize what this might look like. So if you've got good plans, then a purchaser is in a pretty good place to say, oh, I can see where you're going with this. Yeah. They might put their own nuance upon it, but certainly it adds value if people can visualize where you think the blue sky in this business would be.
They can see that it has legs, that it's going to continue.
Indeed.
And how about the idea of clients? Again, it will depend on the type of business, but having a good database, having contracts in place, things like that, depending again on the industry, would be an enhancement as well. So how do you prepare clients for the idea that someone new might be coming in? How do you maintain that relationship if that's an important part of the business?
Once again, it comes down to systems and people. So if you're in a situation where you, as the vendor, are the only person that people get to deal with, or you're the person that everyone gravitates to, and they've not introduced either succession into your business, or you powered other people within your business to actually have a client-facing role, then really ultimately you're not selling a business, you're selling a job. If you go to anybody working for a large organization and say, well, what is it that you have to sell? And they'll say, well, nothing. I just work for this guy. So the relationships, to the extent that they're contracted, are then transferable. And if the relationships are open-ended, say in professional services, then making sure that through the process you're introducing other people to demonstrate that there's a transferability of your skills and the service and the value that the business offers, not what you offer. In some respects, you've got to get ego out of the room, because you're not selling the individual, although they're very important, but you are trying to sell something that's a transferable asset.
It's a package deal. That's a really important distinction between, it's not you, it is the business, and it's being able to pass it on in that respect. Okay, well, that's
Indeed.
great. So we've got brand and systems and people and plans and clients, which really dovetails into clear communication. So it's not all about you. So if we've got those pieces in place and we're trying to work out what we need from the sale, be that the actual price that we're keen on, or other aspects or goals that there might be around the sale of this business, what do you see as things that we really need to be aware of, or perhaps a common mistake that we see people make around valuing the business, perhaps?
Yeah, look, the most common mistake that people will make will be overvaluing the business. And I will say, oh, look, my business is better than the business down the road for these reasons. And intuitively, they just have this view that without doubt, the value is easily explained. 99 times out of 100, where a purchaser can see the weakness in that argument, they'll discount the value quite substantially. So, owners typically overvalue what the business is worth. And the problem with that is that if they leave it too late, which we get back to this 3 to 5 year time frame, if they haven't had enough time to do any remediation, they're going to be a price taker. And the purchasers, they'll smell the desperation of a vendor that needs to get out and price accordingly. So if you can be in a position of building that value, fixing up all of the the one percenters within your organization, locking down all of those things we spoke about before, then value is substantially enhanced.
I think that's probably one of the strongest arguments for beginning with the end in mind far in
Indeed.
advance, because that's undoubtedly the key thing, that people have that price point in their mind, which can lead to other financial implications as well. But the number one is the ticket price, what's on there, and getting that agreement. So if we've done the remediation, we're doing this nicely far in advance, we've agreed on a price because we've spoken to a professional, whether it be one of our business advisors or someone similar, what are the different avenues to market? Because there must be more than one way in which you could sell a business.
Yeah, no, there's certainly several. And often the best approach is to a competitor, somebody who might have had eyes on what you were doing, and it might be cheaper for them to buy you and take your people and your IP and your stock, if it's a trading business, rather than having to price you out of competition.
Yeah.
So your competitors, there's a risk with that, because of course once they know that you're for sale, then most vendors think, oh, they'll do something to damage my business. An adult conversation with somebody who's likely to be a purchaser is a very, very good idea. Then there's trade sales, putting yourself in a position where you might tend an open fair where the likes of purchasers would be. And a lot of vendors will say, well, look, I just don't have time to do that. I'm so busy in my business rather than working on my business that I don't have time to attend these things. Well, if you've got 3 to 5 years and there's value, then make time and be around where purchasers or trade associations are, because they'll make the connections that you need to. Obviously, brokers, there's quite a vibrant broking community, and they're real estate agents. They're very good at managing expectations, because they'll say to you right from the start that this thing's not worth very much, and these are the things you need to fix it. And as often as not, they'll have various paths to sale. The problem with a broker is you've got to involve them when you want to sell it. And often, if you said, right, in 5 years' time, I'm going to sell it, that's the time that you would engage a broker.
Yeah.
But if you've not done anything about fixing the business up between now and that 5-year time frame, then you're a price taker. And once again, you're at the behest of the broker saying, well, you're at a point in your life where you have to take whatever price that's offered. So yeah, it's rare that a broker will say, look, come back to me in 5 years' time and fix all of these things up. They'll try and push you into selling, but they are certainly a pathway that purchasers will approach to say, well, it's around. I've got a redundancy. I'm looking to buy a business, and what's available. Accounting firms, obviously, regard ourselves as being a pathway to that. We act for our client, whether it's the purchaser or the vendor. So obviously we have a role to play. But for mine and my experience would be that people generally leave it too late and then don't approach the marketing of their business directly, or, assertively. They sort of regard themselves as, look, I'll just put a board out the front and they'll queue up. And the fact of the matter is they just simply don't.
So optimism can be a good trait, but not necessarily. Yes. We need to marry that with pragmatism as well. Okay, this has been really helpful. What we're seeing here is that there are 3 key phases. There's number 1, which is setting your own goals. What do you want from the sale of this business? Number 2 is engaging with an advisor or an expert, as in an accountancy firm or another type of advisor that can help find those gaps to close and come up with a program of closure. And so giving yourself plenty of time is important, so that then you can move into phase 3, which is the actual sale. So it's a lengthy process, but if it's done in the right way, then you will get the result much more likely than if it's done in a rushed way. So that sounds like the way of approaching it. Wonderful.
Yes,
well, thank you. Thank you so much, Gary. We will catch you again on next week's episode to bring you another insight that will be really helpful and valuable to you as a business owner. Thanks for listening in.
Thanks, Angela.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Less Than 15 and have a fresh idea or two to take action on. Hit the subscribe button so you catch every bite-sized business bulletin. And we'd love you to leave a review or perhaps share the episode with a friend. Less Than 15 is brought to you by accountants and business advisors DFK Australia New Zealand, helping business owners make better decisions through local knowledge, national connections and global reach. We'll be back next week with more valuable insights to help you and your business grow.